Welcome to the Alcohol Addiction Podcast. My name is Lee Davey. I'm not an alcoholic. I refuse to be anonymous. I am somebody who doesn't drink alcohol, and I spend every waking moment helping other people do the same. If you would see me now, you would laugh. The Alcohol Addiction Podcast. Yesterday I was in a place called Chapter in Cardiff, which is like a gathering place, like a huge super coffee shop stroke bar stroke restaurant stroke cinema. And I was there with friends of mine, and one of my friends, Guy, dear friend of mine, he said to me, Lee, dear boy, very soon me and Deborah, we are having a podcast training course where they teach you to be a professional podcaster, and we were wondering if you wanted to join with us. And I was like, oh, cheers, Guy. You're trying to say that I'm not a professional podcaster? Of which he backtracked a little bit and said, well, of course you're already a professional podcaster, Lee, in his very posh English stroke South African army voice. And, well, of course he's wrong. I'm not very professional at all. If you saw me right now, I'm sat on a rocking chair, holding my mic in my hand, and my MacBook Air is balanced precariously on the edge of a cot. In the background, you can see various baby books and teddy bears. Because I'm currently in Cardiff. I just got back from Barcelona, and we are staying at Liza's friend's house, who's very kindly allowed us to live in their spare home for a couple of weeks. And so I'm kind of in makeshift podcast mode at the moment. So I'm sure the sound quality is going to be okay. And the video is not fantastic, but you know, you can see my mug, and that's all that matters. So I want to say a big welcome to Tiffany, Colleen, Matt, and Mr. B. Lever. All four of those lovely people have joined the Strive movement this week. I think the vast majority of them actually come from This Naked Mind, where I did the podcast with Annie Grace. It seems that a lot of people are listening to that podcast episode and then are popping over to find out what Strive's all about. So that's pretty cool. Shows that collaborations like that kind of work. And I'm hoping that one day we will be big enough to send people over to Annie Grace's world. That may be quicker than I think, hopefully. Fingers crossed. All right. So welcome, Tiffany, Colleen, Matt, and Mr. B. Lever. You have made a really, really important decision, and that is to not go it alone in this inquiry about whether or not alcohol serves any purpose or not in your life, right? I think that's really super important. Also, I wanted to say on Sunday, which is yesterday as I'm recording this, we began our 8th life-changing experience. We only managed to get 3 people out of the 5. So we still got 2 spots available. And if you fancy taking a shot at that and working with Nikki, the Truth About Alcohol moderators, Nikki and Anna, then you can still get on there. Just send me an email at leedavypoker@gmail.com or the truthaboutalcohol@gmail.com. Okay. So this episode is called The Roundabout. And I was sitting in a hotel room when I was in Korea. I was in a place called Seogwipo, probably pronouncing that wrong. But I'm sitting in this place called Seogwipo, right? And I'm in the 13th floor, and I'm looking outside the window, and below me, there's this big roundabout, okay? Now, in the UK, when you're learning to drive, one of the scariest parts of learning to drive is navigating yourselves around a roundabout, because you approach the roundabout through the slip road, and then you would come to a standstill, waiting for your opportunity or your right of way, if you like, or your space or your gap, whatever, to pull into the roundabout's flow, the roundabout movement, before proceeding on your way. And very often when you reach the slip road, because the slots were, you know, if you were at a busy roundabout, you had to really be fast on your feet. So you had to, you never wanted to put your handbrake on. So you're always like, clutch control was really important. And if you was a new driver, you'd get a little bit nervous. But the main key principle that you learned in the UK was you had to stop at the roundabout wait for a space, and then go for it. And what this did is it meant that the roundabout flow just kept going all the time. And the slip road was the place really where you had a bit of a queue until you got in there, right? Well, this roundabout that I'm looking at in Seogwipo, it was balmy. There's the traffic going around the roundabout, but the cars that were going up the slip road, they weren't stopping, waiting for a chance to get into the roundabout. They were just flying into the roundabout, which meant because the cars on the slip road were flying into the roundabout, the cars on the roundabout had to screech on their brakes and come to a halt. And what you had was the entire roundabout system in a continual logjam of people beeping at each other, slowing down, nearly hitting each other. It was absolute balmy, right? Absolute balmy. And for me, the solution here, in order to reduce the number of accidents that the Koreans obviously have, and to reduce the levels of personal stress and wear and tear on the brakes and the honking of horns, right, is to just do what they do in the UK, is to create a rule and say, look, you cannot go on the roundabout until you have a right of way, until you find a gap, a safe gap in order for you to proceed, right? A simple solution. Or is it a simple solution? Because while we were in Korea, we hired a wonderful guide called Andy. And Andy was a real sound guy, really intelligent, clever sound guy. And after watching this roundabout in Seogwipo for so long, I got in the car with Andy, who himself is a taxi driver. And we all know that taxi drivers are absolute nutheads when it comes to, chilling out. I mean, they're just like, all they're interested in is the money and getting their person from A to B as quickly as they can. Safety is not really in the equation. So, taxi drivers were probably the worst culprits on this roundabout. And Andy is a taxi driver. And I'm telling Andy about this nonsense about watching this Seogwipo roundabout. And he agreed with me that it was absolutely nuts. And he also agreed with me that the UK way of doing things seems saner and a lot more sensible. It would speed up flow, said Andy. And Andy concurred with me that the traffic fatalities and an incident rate in Korea is really high. And he said to me, wow, if we did it your way, this would be really good. And then we came to a roundabout and Andy flies into the roundabout without kind of stopping. It was as if he didn't hear a single word that I said. But of course, he did hear everything that I said because I had the conversation with him and I know he was compost mentos and we're having a really deep conversation about it. And this actually goes to show the power of the death effect, a module that we go through when you take the Truth About Alcohol life-changing experience. And I'll go about it a little bit here. Imagine that you're Andy, right? This guide of mine, this taxi driver, and he wants to be someone who doesn't drink alcohol, okay? And I sit him down and I say to him, look, Andy, the reason you drink alcohol is you've been programmed to drink alcohol since birth. Alcoholism is an invisible, violent, and dominant belief system. It is not a byproduct of drinking too much alcohol. And alcohol isn't normal and pleasurable. It's actually a powerful poison that kills 3.3 million people a year. And the reason you drink alcohol is because you believe that alcohol has inherent value to you. That's why you desire it. But in truth, it has no value. And the value you perceive that it has is complete illusory, right? Then is Andy then going to walk into a bar when, like, Andy agrees with everything I'm said, right? So he's like, yeah, logically, rationally, rightly. Yeah, he's agreeing with me. Yeah, he's really agreeing with everything I'm saying about my philosophy. And then he walks into a bar armored with this new information that I've imparted upon him, which he now owns, or he thinks he owns. He walks into the bar and everybody in the bar is drinking, right? What is Andy going to do? Okay. It doesn't matter. Here's the point. Andy was not willing to break the status quo when we had a conversation about how he could approach a roundabout more safely. Because when he approached the roundabout, a couple of things happened. One, his subconscious mind kicked in and his body took over his mind, and his body acted without him thinking, because his body knows how to drive when he approaches a roundabout. It's habitual, right? The other thing is, everyone around him was driving the Korean way. So he didn't want to drive a different way. If he did drive a different way, then everybody would have honked the hell out of him. He would have looked like a numpty. And this is the same when he walks into the bar. He walks into the bar. He doesn't want to have a drink of alcohol, because we're talking about the fact that it's an invisible, violent, dominant belief system. But his body takes over from his mind and goes to order a pint from the bar, because it's always ordered a pint from the bar. And before you know it, he's already ordered it. And everyone around him is drinking alcohol. So he doesn't want to be different to everybody around him, because he doesn't want to be the person that everyone's laughing at and ridicule him, because he's actually in a bar drinking a Del Boy-like mocktail, right? There's too much pain and suffering in being the person who chooses to wait at the roundabout slip road rather than just driving straight on it. It's too much pain and suffering to be the only driver in Korea who's going to change the way he drives. There is too much pain and suffering to be the only person in the bar who is not drinking alcohol. There's too much pain and suffering for you to be different, okay? In the short term, irrespective of any long-term benefits, right? So don't be a Korean driver. Don't be a Korean driver, okay? Be the one vehicle that does something different, and do it today, okay? Because that's the only reason you get to become someone who doesn't drink alcohol. You don't get to be someone who doesn't drink alcohol by doing the same thing that you've always done. And you don't get to be someone who doesn't drink alcohol by following what everybody else is doing, okay? If you have any questions on this whatsoever, send me an email at leedavypoker@gmail.com, spelled D-A-V-Y. And if you want to join the Truth About Alcohol life-changing experience or our radical honesty experience, send me an email at the same address. Until next week, thanks for listening.